Well, good morning everyone. Austin here from Martogg, and I'm sitting back in the office at RPAC today with Michael Reid.
Morning.
How are you, Michael?
Pretty good.
That's the way, pretty good for a Tuesday morning. And Michael, we wanted to come down and talk to you because we had some interesting comments last week from the AIP event, of which obviously your business was a part of the story. And so we thought, what better than to come and talk to you in person about some of these relevant comments around the product. So the first question is the first comment is from Dominic. Not only consumers, but brand owners and packers are purchasing packaging from overseas rather than Australian manufacturers purely based on price. I'm sure Michael Reid from RPAC would agree to that, exclamation mark.
Yeah, well, Dominic, absolutely the case. So take in the fresh produce space, at least 50% of all fresh produce packaging in this country comes out of Asia. The cost difference might be a cent, and the purchasing people, procurement people continually buy based on price alone, and as an Australian manufacturer, it's simply impossible to actually meet that price. However, having said that, it's still probably only less than 10% difference in price on packaging.
Yeah, and it's hard to imagine. I think you used an analogy before when we were talking before we started the video about the actual cost difference for, say, a strawberry punnet, for example.
Yeah, so a strawberry punnet would sell retail $2.50 in a supermarket during the season. Strawberry punnet typically out of Asia would be maximum 1 cent less than an Australian domestically made punnet, and that could be from any number of manufacturers in this country. And
they're the same strawberries that are going in there.
They're Australian strawberries going in either an Australian piece of packaging or the majority going into an Asian piece of packaging for the cost of around maybe a cent difference, but this same product is selling for $2.50 in the supermarket. So that 1 cent represents not a huge percentage.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine that Australians, if they knew that, or if they knew the facts around that, and they had the choice in front of them, it's hard to imagine that people really, would choose to buy something even a few cents cheaper.
Yeah.
If they really knew the benefits that choosing the other product would have for Australia on the whole. And I think that argument on price, or that discussion on price, is really one of the biggest roadblocks to the recycling industry here in Australia. And frankly, we have to look at it from more than just the perspective of price. Now that is a great segue into the second comment here from Helen Millisar. The cost of packaging is marginal in comparison to the cost of the product anyway, i.e. high value food and drink. And I think what Helen's getting at here is that there's a bigger picture. It is about more than just the cost of the packaging. We're talking about carbon emissions, we're talking about, plastic ending up in landfill or ending up in the environment. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, it's another good point. But you think so many of what we buy has got country of origin. I'm pretty sure consumers would be outraged if they knew that their Australian strawberry or their Australian mushroom was being put in a package that was made in Asia. But it's not mandatory to actually disclose where packaging's made. I think the assumption from the consumer would be that the packaging would be at least made in Australia if the fresh produce is from Australia. We've seen in the past the outrage when supermarkets have accidentally or swapped country of origin for sardines or berries or whatever it might be. People are not getting the information actually that they deserve to have. That's the reason for country of origin legislation, I guess. But back to what Helen's sort of saying on a bigger picture, the recycle industry in this country simply really doesn't exist. And it doesn't exist because we don't insist on using Australian landfill destined packaging. So until such time that we mandate that Australian packaging is actually made from Australian consumer waste, we have no chance of birthing a recycle industry in this country. And until we do that, we are just simply going to be importing recycled industry manufactured products out of Asia and putting them into our landfill. That's what we're doing now. That's what we'll continue to do. And until there's a change, nothing is going to change.
Yeah, and it's an interesting comment about mandating recycled content, and it did come up last week as well. And that's another comment here by Helen again. So This is one of the reasons why the UK government has introduced a tax on packaging that does not include recycled content to equalise the cost and drive change across the board. And it is an interesting one, and given everything that we've just spoken about with respect to using waste from overseas rather than using waste that's generated here in Australia and fixing the problem here, makes you wonder whether it should also, whether that's something that Australia should adopt, and whether Australia should consider the notion of, mandating Australian content as well. So that's a good segue, Michael, into Helen's second comment, which is, this is one of the reasons why the UK government has introduced a tax on packaging that does not include recycled content to equalise the cost and to drive change across the board. Given what you were just saying about mandating recycled content in Australia, it does make you wonder whether this is something that Australia should adopt moving forward. But not only with respect to recycled content, it does make you wonder whether there has to be a consideration there for Australian recycled content as well, if we really want to fix the issue that is plastic waste.
Well, we all know that worldwide container deposit schemes work for a reason. There's a financial incentive. Sometimes you need to use a financial incentive to force change. We're at a point, a crossroads here, we're running out of landfill. We need to force change. So to force change by helping to subsidise the recycle industry to be born in this country is a very good and quick way of actually making that happen. Imagine a world where instead of the millions and millions and millions of punnets that go into landfill today and other plastic packaging go into landfill today, imagine an industry, or imagine mandated legislation whereby that packaging had a value and had to be turned back into packaging. Instantaneously, our landfill problems would disappear.
Yeah, I think it's constantly evolving. I mean, there's a reason why we started packaging our fruit in those punnets in the first place. And back to Helen's point, because there is a bigger picture there. There's all of these benefits in terms of what you get from packaging the fruit in a plastic package in the first place. But I think it's evolving, and I think that now we're learning about this plastic waste issue. And I think you're right. I think until we really highlight that and really start focusing on it, we're just going to continue sending plastic to landfill because we're not going to be able to send it overseas anymore. So yeah, I completely agree with that. I think the key takeaway from this is that purchasing needs to be more than just cost if we want to have a circular economy. So thanks Michael, thanks for your time today.
Good.
And we look forward to answering some more questions over the next few days.